because this is what needs to be done. And we invite the people who pass by us to join us and add their voice to ours, or if they like to ask a question, to participate. Because in this country, in this great country of Great Britain, freedom of speech still lives. Whilst in Russia, it's been long dead. So use your voice while you have your voice. Because one day, you may no longer have it. Especially if regimes like the Russian terrorist regime end up winning. Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Ворогам України тричі! And now my friends, thank you my friend, thank you. Lovely gentleman here. Now my friends, we're going to have a short musical break. Слава нації! Україна! 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 Героям України тричі! Now, my friends, I'd like to give a word to one of our friends from Italy.
Hi, sono Italy. My name is Pablo. I'm originally from Italy. I've been here for 10 years in London, and I've been for many years a journalist. So I know something. I wanted to talk something about the media manipulation, where Russia is number one in the world in terms of media manipulation, fake news production, and this is the real world. Because now there is a narrative that Russia has won the war. This is what is very popular. On the social media, people say that Russia has already won the war. Why are we fighting on? Why are we fighting on? Because Russia is a winner. And it is not true. Because let me make just a very short comparison. In World War II, Soviet Union in 2 years went from Volga to Berlin. Okay, now in 3 years, the Russian army has not conquered even the whole Donbass. They already controlled part of the Donbass before. Now, who is controlling now Kiev? Who is controlling Kharkiv? Who is controlling Odessa? Who is controlling Dnipro? So all the Ukrainian cities are controlled basically by the Ukrainians. They conquered Kherson and they lost Kherson. But according to the propaganda machine, the Russian propaganda machine, okay, which is very active all over the world, especially in Italy, okay, is very active. And this propaganda machine says that Russia has already won the war. It is not true. It is a mother of all fake news. There are also many other fake news. Then another strategy of this propaganda machine is to make different products according to the audience. So when the Russians are talking to a conservative audience, they say, we are the defender of the Christianity, we are the defender of the traditional family against the LGBTQ and so on. Okay. When they talk to a progressive socialist audience, they say, we defeated the Nazis in the World War II. And so we are the anti-fascist, no, they want to denazify Ukraine. When they go to Africa, they said, we are anti-colonialist, because all the other countries have made empires. No, Siberia, or apparently, just enter Russia by itself, okay? No, okay, they deny there was a Russian empire, it's not historical. And when they talk to Europeans, they said, we want to defend Europe from the immigration. So every audience, they have a different target according to the different propaganda product according to the audience. But at the end of the day, it's always the same, and this is very, very active. Especially in the last weeks, I've seen on Facebook a flood of posts supporting Russia. It was not so even 2 or 3 months ago. I don't know if it is because of the Trump election. I don't know if it is because of this dealing between Trump and Putin. But anyway, this is the fact that now there is really a strong attack by the propaganda machine. So when we talk about rearming Europe, I'm not against rearming Europe, of course, I understand that we have to rearm, but I know that it is a huge amount of money. We talk about 800 billion euros, okay, it is a huge amount of money that could affect also the social life in the EU and also in the UK if you make a similar project. I think the priority should be with probably a smaller amount of money to target this propaganda machine, to demolish the fake news and to challenge the fake news. Now we have seen that Ukraine has attacked refineries in Russia, has attacked infrastructure in Russia, has also tried to enter Belgorod, to cross the frontier. Okay? All this, there is a total silence about all this. On the other side, after 7 months, they are counter-attacking Kursk, and they are describing this counter-attack in Kursk as a huge victory. So all this is not true, is media manipulation. That is what I want to tell maybe next time we have something else to tell. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you. You know, that was very well spoken. I especially like the part when you mentioned that Russia tries to pedal to both sides of the political spectrum, to both the extremes, to the far left and to the far right. To the far left, they say Ukraine is a bunch of Nazis. To the far right, they say Ukraine is some kind of a conspiratorial Zionist state. So it's no surprise that the points Russia gives, they are self-debunking. They destroy themselves with their own points. Because they always hope that the many different people who they lie about Ukraine are never going to stand together in the same room and have a 5-minute conversation comparing the stories that Russia told them. It's like the police asking an individual what happened on the crime scene. One cop asks him, he says one story. Another cop asks him, he says another story. Well, something is not right. Why is he saying 2 different stories to 2 different people? Makes no sense, does it? That's Russia, my friends. Why trust in a witness that gives different testimony to different people? Why trust a country that gives different points to different political parties? It's unfeasible, it's stupid. So thank you very much, my friend. That was a very important point to make about Russian disinformation. And this idea that Russia has already won, it's a very, very funny idea, my friends. I personally find it quite amusing. What exactly has Russia won? Certainly not Kyiv, certainly not Kharkiv, certainly not Kherson. They suffered terrible defeats at every single one of those engagements. The rest of the war has been mostly a grind, a bit of a stalemate a lot of times. It has. A war of attrition where Russia loses at the least 3 times more men than Ukraine loses. And that's the minimum. That's the bare minimum, my friends. Back in the war in Donbass, it was around even. But now the Russians are advancing. They're just sending people as meat. And here's something I wanted to cover about this great, victorious Russian army. You know, they have their logistics done by donkeys nowadays. And I don't mean it in a derogative way, oh, you know, they're all donkeys, they're stupid. No. I mean actual, literal donkeys are being used on the battlefield by the Russian terrorist regime. Speaking of which, I wish Greenpeace and PETA would actually say something about this. Because clearly nowadays that's animal abuse. To be bringing a horse, a donkey, and camels to the battlefield, that's a bit of an abuse, my friends. That should not be done nowadays, that there are cars, vans, and motorcycles that can do the same job but much better. But the Russians, they send cripples to the battlefield. And you know what's interesting about this particular piece of information, my friends? There's actually a lot of footage of this, of cripples walking with these little sticks, walking into the battlefield, you know, limping into the battlefield. And you know what the Russians say? They put those videos online, and they say, oh look, the Ukrainians are committing war crimes, they're killing the wounded. My friends, the Russians are forcing their wounded to go back to the battlefield, to go back to the trenches. And then they point fingers at the Ukrainians and say, look, they're killing the wounded, war crime! What kind of mad world is this? What kind of idiocy is this, my friends? Let me ask you. Who sends their wounded to the battlefield just so that they then complain, oh, that the enemy is killing their wounded? This is insane. This shows how little Russia cares for their people. For them, they are meat. And those who side with Russia, they better be prepared to be meek themselves. You know, personally, I usually like to ask people, if you support Russia, if you think Russia is great, if you think Great Britain is trash, if you think this country is no good, why do you not go to Russia? It's a serious question. It has no negative connotation. Some people tell others in this country, oh, go back to your country, go back to your country. We don't like that. That is a very hateful thing to say. However, if a person clearly doesn't like this country, and they seem to love Russia because they defend Russia at every situation, at every opportunity, it's the same thing to ask, why don't you go to Russia? You know, my friends, my parents, very long ago, they migrated from Ukraine to Portugal. When I was a kid, they brought me with them. Then I migrated from Portugal to the United Kingdom. I mean, it's a normal situation. I have nothing against the Portuguese people, they're great. You know, we have a lovely friend Carlos here today. But I just chose to migrate because I was looking for better opportunities. So it really baffles me when people trash talk their country so much. When they always say, oh, it's terrible here, it's horrible. And yet they remain in that country. That is the thing I just don't understand. Move somewhere that you like, that you would like to live in. My friends, it's not difficult. There's still freedom of movement in this country. You can just move to another country if you like. I mean, not that I would recommend it because this is a good country to live in. At the end of the day, despite all the flaws, this is a great country still. Russia is not. You know, people, these Russophiles, as I call them, they sometimes say, oh, Russia's amazing, look at all those videos. And they show some footage of the best streets in Moscow and St. Petersburg. They forget that Moscow and St. Petersburg is the same as Pyongyang is in North Korea. They build up a facade, a Potemkin village. They have these nice metros, they have these nice streets. It's some nice streets, not even all of them, in Moscow and St. Petersburg. And then they keep showing this to the world. Look at your average street in Chelyabinsk. Look at your average street in Yekaterinburg. Look at your average street in Rostov-na-Don. Look at all those. Why do those never show up in the videos of the Russophiles? Look at your average dеревня with all the Zelyankas all over the place. You know, where they dig holes to sleep in. Look at that. Look at the Russian babushkas and dedushkas, the grandpas and grandmas in Russia, going out to the street during winter, shouting, "Za mir, za yem." Look at them. Why do they never show up in these videos of the Russophiles? But no. When they film the United States or the UK, they go for the absolute worst. And when they film Russia, all of a sudden, the Tucker Carlson within them awakens. And Tucker Carlson is truly a fun individual. He goes to Russia to sit for Russia in a French store. Now that's the funny part. He went to Auchan in Russia, which is a French store. And it's standardized. You know, all the Auchans in the world are quite similar to each other. It's not your Russian store, it's an Auchan. And he goes around, oh, look at this bread. Ooh, look at that, it's so soft and warm, it's so nice here. Look how cheap it is. I mean, sure, it's gonna be a few times cheaper than in America. But so it's going to be the wage. You know, who cares if the food is 3 times cheaper in Russia? If the wages are 10 times lower? Who cares if that happens, my friends? Russia is a terrible place to live in. Everybody knows this. Everybody with basic level of IQ knows this, with an IQ above room temperature. But my friends, once again, I have to say, if Ukraine does not receive aid, then Russia will win. Not because they're this powerful, amazing military. Not because they got, the powerful Russian, Soviet military industrial complex. Not because of any of that garbage. That's not true. They will win because there's more of them. Even if they lose 5 Russians for every Ukrainians, eventually they will grind down the rest of Ukraine. They will. with sheer force of numbers. My friends, that's not what we want. And even if you send every Ukrainian around the world to Ukraine to fight for Ukraine, without sending any aid, Ukraine will lose. Because the difference between victory and defeat is in the aid, the money, the shells, the bullets. Thank you very much. That is the real difference between victory and defeat. You know, Vitalik's little bots here on this channel, I love those individuals, they make me laugh so much. They usually start going on about, oh, look at all these patriots here riding out in Ukraine. Well, perhaps because we like this country, and we want to bring influence of Europe to Ukraine. That is the future of Ukraine, my friends. European influence in Ukraine. For Ukraine to become an essential part of Europe, inseparable from the rest. A European army is the future. A united European army that's going to defend Europe against any of these worldwide bullies, like China and the US. And is going to defend Europe, most importantly, against terrorist, genocidal, psychopathic regimes like Russia, Ayatollah Iran, and North Korea. Europe needs to unite. Europe needs to wake up. Europe needs to win. World, wake up!
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 Europe, unite!
Europe, unite!
Europe, unite!
Europe, unite!
Europe, unite!
Europe, unite!
Stop Russia, stop the war!
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 Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
Thank you, my friend. And now, my friends, we're going to have a short musical break.
О, бачите, які кучері гарні. Кучері. Да, більше на бороді вже кучері.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Героям України тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Ворогам України тричі!
Смерть! Смерть! Смерть!
You know, my friends, I'd like to remind you all that our rallies happen here on 10 Downing Street on Wednesdays at 6 and on Sundays at 3 o'clock. So please come and show your support. It's very important that you do. We have a little bit of technical issues here, it seems. That's fine. My friends, we have done many events, and some of them were counter-protests in the past. Today I'd like to invite you to another one. It's going to happen this Friday, 21st March, at Kensington, the Fairfield East Kingston upon Thames. It's a Stop the War Coalition event once again, my friends. So once again, this Friday, 21st March, is going to be at 7 o'clock, 21st March 2025. It's going to be a Stop the War Coalition rally again. So I invite all the people who are willing, into our usual coalition of the willing, to do a counter-protest against it. Now, these individuals, they try to hide their ill intent by claiming that they are pro-peace. They say, oh, you know, we don't want Russia to have invaded Ukraine, we don't want Russia to invade Ukraine, but we cannot be sending any weapons to Ukraine, that's it. That's what they say. A foolish thing to say indeed, a very foolish thing. How are we supposed to get Russia out if weapons are not allowed to go in to defend the Ukrainians from the Russian terrorist regime? How are we supposed to win this war? My friends, Ukraine needs weapons. Ukraine needs
Константин, так вы же не зрозумієте
a lot of
нічого.
promises were made by the United States, by Europe. Some have kept those promises more than others. And we're very grateful to all those who have given Ukraine aid, because that is very important for all of us, not just for Ukraine, my friends, for all of us.
Богдан,
However,
героям слава!
war is not over. Battle continues. The war continues. We need to keep speaking about it. So once again, join us in our counter-protests. If you want me to tell you more about this counter-protest, come to me after I finish speaking, my friends. And also, one of the main reasons why we come here, my friends, is to make sure that people remember. Remember what's happened in Ukraine. Remember what has happened in the past, so that we do not repeat those mistakes in the future. So that we remember those brave heroes who have been killed, and those brave heroes who have suffered an even worse fate, which is being captured by the Russian terrorist regime. They have endured endless atrocities at the hands of the Russian terrorist regime, and that must never be forgotten. Those atrocities are absolutely terrifying, my friends, to even mention. The torture the Russian terrorist regime makes these brave men endure. Any of us would have been broken very quickly, my friends, would break very quickly with that torture. I will not act out. The men who can endure that torture, and
Владимир, ну
survive,
ты и шутник
they
сегодня.
are a different caliber of men. And many of them have had to endure, my friends. And it is our job, our duty, to make sure that every single one of them is remembered, that their sacrifice is remembered, and that their sacrifice is not in vain. This country has the cenotaph as one of the many reminders of the heroes of these people, of the British people, who fought and who beat the enemy, who tried to take away their freedom and their existence. One day, Ukraine will have a cenotaph of its own, to remember the brave heroes of Ukraine, who have fought and who have won. We hope to see that day soon, my friends. But it will only happen with aid of the rest of the world. And if everyone around the world remembers, knows and remembers the heroes of Ukraine. So in the name of those who have died, in the name of those who have suffered and who are still suffering and dying every day, my friends, the heroes and the civilians, I invite you all to observe a minute of silence.
Амурчик, покиньте нашу территорию, и мы все вернемся.
Thank you. Lest we forget, it's a very important sentence for this great country. We must take a page from the book of the British people and remember our own heroes also, and emulate their actions where we can, support them where they need support, remember them, and defend them whenever their name is being attacked by our enemy. Our common enemy, our collective enemy, the enemy, Russia. Russia is the enemy of Europe, the enemy of the world. When the Russian terrorist regime collapses, even the air will be sweeter for everyone to breathe.
Гроши отрабатываешь?
My friends,
Проплачено.
Не плачьте.
the atrocities and the harm that the Russian
Михаил, ты
terrorist regime
поскочи.
has created in this world,
Героям
has
слава,
made this
Богдан.
world endure, are countless. We have mentioned many of them. Siding with the worst
Против
people
состава
in this
России
world,
какой-то.
supporting terrorism, starting wars left, right, and center, and for no gain whatsoever for the people themselves. We are not defenders of imperialism, my friends. However, it needs to be said that human history has many different
У
kingdoms,
вас
many
в России
different
митинги
empires,
только
many
за
different-
сосиску и гречку.
some of which have improved the world. The Achaemenid Empire, the Roman Empire, many places, many kingdoms have made the world a better place to live. But not Russia. Russia has been destructive to this world on the level of the Mongol Empire. They destroy, they crush, they annihilate,
Иван, на
and
тебе.
they create nothing. They improve nothing. They
Да не,
destroy,
вот смотрю
they
на чат, нормально
subvert,
нас слышат, все окей. Даже видят
and
некоторые.
they do nothing to help the people themselves. The people
Be thinking, what do we have to buy so it won't be compromised? This is why every single military budget of every single NATO country and European country especially is increasing. This is why countries like Sweden are giving their radio, I think it was last year, more than a year ago I think now. They gave out the only radio plane that they had which can cover up to 500 or 600 square kilometers around it. They gave it to Ukraine and they said, we would rather Ukraine use it against Russians than God forbid one day we need to use it against Russians. Finland joined NATO. The border, NATO border with Russia has doubled. What has happened since then? We were in Kursk region for 7 months. First time a non-nuclear country had crossed the border of a nuclear nation. That has never happened before. Russia has not tried to advance on a foreign land for more than 1,000 of days with minimum of 1,000 soldiers casualties every single day, wounded and killed. They don't care about their own, but we care about our people today. 175 of our heroes came back home, and we are joyful. Every single soldier that comes back home is like a birth of a child in a family. They were lost, they were tortured, and now they are free. For Russians, our soldiers are saying they don't evacuate their wounded. Guess why? Because they are considered missing in action, and that's it. And their sergeant is getting their money. And when I heard a few weeks ago, a Russian soldier said that I was told that if I don't attack Ukrainians on the line where we are, that they will punish me. They will send me to Kursk region. Imagine. We are still puzzled and we will look, I think for years, for many, many years, we will look for those thousands and thousands of surrounded Ukrainian soldiers in Kursk region. They are as much in danger as they are imaginary. This is why what you hear, those who listen to Putin, those who trust Putin, if they are not dead yet, they will die because that trust is a cancer. Because Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Stop Russia, stop the war.
Stop Russia, stop the war.
And every single rally, we try not to forget to thank the country that we stand in right now for all the soldiers that they've been training since spring of 2022. Lots of things you will find out after this war. Lots of things was done, but Britain did not boast about it. Britain did so much more. Britain did so much more than you can imagine, and this is why you will hear us say, "Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain!
Thank you, Britain!"
Thank you, Britain!
And this is why I'll make a list, hopefully by Sunday, and we will thank every single country. Romania, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, France, Germany, Spain, Italy, so many countries. So many countries. And when you look on the other side, who helps them? North Korea, Belarus, Iran with their drones. How many conventions they have broken? This is why we stand here, and from me and my family and from all the volunteers. Now we have only 2 meetings, on Wednesday at 6 p.m. for 2 hours and on Sunday at 3 p.m. for 2 hours. We do not have meetings, rallies on a Friday evening, because it's very hard to organize the transportation, and we are trying to calculate, but I think it's about more than 500 war rallies we've had in last 11 years, and especially in last 3 years. We have 3 every single week. This is why we gather here, for peace, freedom and democracy. Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Нашим захисникам тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
And as always, we're going to finish with national anthem, which tells our story today as well as it says it when it was written. Thank you so much.
України, ні слава, ні воля, ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці, запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу. Кажем, що ми, браття козацького роду. Душу тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми, браття козацького роду.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава Україні!
Героям слава!
Слава нації!
Смерть ворогам!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Україна!
Понад усе!
Нашим славним захисникам і захисницям тричі!
Слава! Слава! Слава!
Thank you. See you on Sunday.
Yeah. Если жесть? Пару слов скажешь?
Почему да?
Пару слов скажешь?
Сегодня я не в эфир.
Пару-пару.
Не в эфирном состоянии.
Ладно.
Когда-то могу, когда-то.
Окей.
Разъем.
Тут такой Слава. Где Слава? Собрались одни нацики. Орешник надо фигануть. О, Павло! Тут про орешник. Щось кажуть про
Знов за
орешник.
орешник. Блін, а що це таке орешник? Це така їжа, це такий
Орешник?
з оріхом, такий десерт, да? з
Це
оріхом?
такий, як куст.
Орешник.
Собралися
Блін, вже
нацики.
скільки часу не чуємо за цих орешників. Це що? Собралися дні нацики. О, нацики, каже, блін, сюди орешник надо фігануть.
Слава. Питають, хто такий Слава.
Путін, президент унітазу, це гарно сказав. Какое перемирие, вас уничтожать нужно.
Оце нацик каже.
Це нормальний нацик, да.
Так.
Це нормальний нацик.
Немає
Прикольно.
різниці.
Що говорять росіяни, які за Путіна та війну, їм начхати як на життя українців, так і на життя своїх власних громадян. Друже, fair life. Друже, це очевидно, це нема питання за це. От подивись на цих тут ідіотів у коментарях. Ти думаєш, вони цікавляться, скільки там москаликів здохнуть, скільки будуть перетворені на добриво в Україні? Їм насрати. Їм заплатили там трошки бабла, в Пітері дали. Вони собі пишуть всяку фігню онлайн. Їм так це подобається.
Зараз Трамп дуже гарний друже, який буде грати в хокей.
Буде грати що?
Хокей.
Хокей,
А
да.
ти чув, що вони хочуть зробити матч хокей Русня з США?
Сполученими Штатами.
Це перший крок до перемир'я.
Це вони, це, по-моєму, називають договоренчик, чи як?
Так. Договорничок.
Договорничок, точно.
Як
Договорничок. Боже, які ідіоти. От, знаєш, от люди своєю мовою не вміють розмовляти. От, убивають русських, убивають рускоязичних. Блін, люди, як ви взагалі определяєте рускоязичних? Ви своєю мовою не вмієте розмовляти.
Украинцы, верните свою страну, тех, кто был уничтожен. Идите защитить. Ладно, заканчиваю.